My dear sisters and brothers, let me ask you something very honestly. When you hear the word marriage, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it love? Is it comfort? Is it companionship? Or is it simply a milestone that society tells you that you must reach? Because many of us walk into marriage with a heart full of expectations, but very little understanding of why Allah created this bond in the first place. And that is where the confusion begins. We live in a time where marriage has been reduced to pictures, celebrations, and temporary emotions, where people enter it thinking, this person will complete me, this person will make me happy. But then reality hits, and suddenly the same marriage becomes a source of pain, disappointment, and distance from Allah. Not because marriage is flawed, but because our intention and understanding of it were never aligned with its real purpose. Marriage, my dear sisters and brothers, was never meant to be just about you and your desires. It was meant to be a journey to Allah, a means of worship, a path of purification, patience, mercy, and growth. It was meant to transform you, to elevate you, to teach you how to love for the sake of Allah and sacrifice for the sake of Allah. And until we shift our mindset from, what can I get from this marriage, to, how can this marriage bring me closer to Allah, we will continue to miss the very essence of why it was created. You're right to point that out. Here is your corrected version with all words fully in English and no Urdu included. My dear sisters and brothers, when we speak about marriage, we often speak about happiness, about companionship, about finding someone who understands us, someone who supports us, someone who fills the emptiness we feel inside. And while all of that is beautiful, all of that is real, all of that is part of the experience, it is not the foundation. It is not the core. It is not the reason Allah created this bond in the first place. Because if marriage was only about personal fulfillment, then the moment fulfillment disappears, the purpose disappears with it. And that is exactly what we see today. People enter marriage with a mindset that is centered around themselves. I want to feel loved. I want to be appreciated. I want to be understood. And again, these are natural desires. There is nothing wrong with them. But when they become the center of the relationship, the moment those desires are not met, frustration begins, resentment builds, and slowly, silently, the hearts begin to distance. Because the entire structure was built on something that was never meant to carry that weight. Marriage in Islam was never designed to revolve around your comfort alone. It was designed to shape you, to refine you, to transform you. It is one of the most powerful tools Allah has given you to work on your inner self, to work on your character, to work on your patience, your humility, your ability to forgive, your ability to give without always expecting something in return. And that is why sometimes marriage feels difficult, not because something is wrong with it, but because it is doing exactly what it was meant to do. It is exposing you to yourself. There are moments in marriage when you will be misunderstood, moments when you will feel unheard, moments when you will give more than you receive, moments when you will have to choose patience over reaction, silence over argument, forgiveness over holding on. And in those moments, if your only goal is personal fulfillment, you will feel like you are losing. But if your goal is Allah, if your goal is growth, if your goal is purification, then every single one of those moments becomes meaningful. Every sacrifice becomes an act of worship. Every difficulty becomes a step closer to Him. Because think about it, when you hold back your anger for the sake of Allah, when you choose kind words even when you are hurt, when you overlook a mistake, when you pray for your spouse instead of complaining about them, when you continue to show up with sincerity, even when it is not easy, these are not small things, these are acts of worship. These are the moments that elevate you, that cleanse your heart, that build a connection between you and Allah that goes far beyond the surface of the relationship. And this is why the mindset matters so deeply, because the same situation can either break you or elevate you. Depending on how you see it, two people can go through the exact same difficulty in marriage. One sees it as a burden, as unfair, as something that is taking away their peace, and the other sees it as an opportunity, as a test, as a chance to grow closer to Allah, and the outcome of their experience becomes completely different. Even though the situation is the same, when marriage becomes a journey to Allah, everything changes. Your expectations change your reactions, change your priorities, change. You begin to ask yourself, not am I getting everything I want, but am I becoming who Allah wants me to be? You begin to measure success not by how perfect your spouse is, but by how much your own character has improved, how much more mercy you carry in your heart. And this does not mean that your needs do not matter. It does not mean that you accept oppression. It does not mean that you ignore your emotions. Islam is balanced. It acknowledges your rights. It acknowledges your feelings. But it teaches you that your ultimate goal is higher than this world, that your ultimate goal is not just a comfortable life, but a meaningful one, a life that brings you closer to Allah even through its challenges. Marriage becomes a space where you learn sincerity in a way that no other relationship teaches you. Because it is easy to be kind when things are easy. It is easy to be patient when everything is going your way. But when you are tired, when you are hurt, when you are tested, and you still choose to act with excellence, you still choose to respond with gentleness, you still choose to uphold your character, that is when sincerity becomes real. That is when your actions are truly for Allah, and over time, something very beautiful begins to happen. The more you approach marriage with this mindset, the more peace you begin to feel. Not because everything becomes perfect, but because your heart becomes anchored, your happiness is no longer dependent on every small action of your spouse. Your stability is no longer shaken by every disagreement, because you are connected to something greater. You are grounded in a purpose that does not change with circumstances. You begin to see your spouse not just as someone who is there to fulfill your needs, but as someone who is part of your journey to Allah. Someone who will sometimes comfort you and sometimes test you. Someone who will sometimes make things easy for you and sometimes challenge you in ways that force you to grow. And both roles are valuable. Both roles are necessary. Both roles are part of the wisdom of this bond. And when two people enter marriage with this understanding, the entire dynamic shifts. It is no longer about winning arguments. It is no longer about keeping score. It is no longer about proving who is right and who is wrong. It becomes about supporting each other in becoming better servants of Allah, reminding each other with gentleness, covering each other's faults, praying for each other in moments when words are not enough. Even the smallest actions begin to carry weight. A smile becomes charity. A kind word becomes worship. A moment of patience becomes something that Allah sees and rewards. And suddenly, marriage is no longer just a social contract. It becomes a continuous source of reward, a continuous opportunity to invest in your hereafter. But this requires intention. It requires awareness. It requires that you pause and ask yourself, why am I doing what I am doing? Am I reacting out of ego? Or am I responding with consciousness of Allah? Am I holding on to this anger because I want to prove a point? Or am I willing to let go for the sake of peace and for the sake of Allah? Because at the end of the day, my dear sisters and brothers, the reality is that no human being will ever be able to fulfill you completely. No spouse, no matter how good they are, will meet every expectation, will understand every emotion, will respond perfectly in every situation. And if your happiness is tied entirely to that, you will always feel something is missing. But when your heart is connected to Allah, when your purpose is clear, when you understand that marriage is a means, not an end, then you are able to give without feeling empty. You are able to forgive without feeling weak. You are able to be patient without feeling like you are losing, because you know that nothing you do for the sake of Allah is ever lost. And that is the beauty of it. That is the depth of it. That is what transforms marriage from something fragile into something meaningful, something strong, something that has the ability to elevate you in ways you never imagined. Because it is no longer just about living together. It is about growing together. It is about striving together. It is about walking a path that leads both of you closer to Allah, step by step, moment by moment, intention by intention. My dear sisters and brothers, one of the most subtle yet dangerous misunderstandings about marriage is the way we measure its success, because without even realizing it, many of us enter this sacred bond with an unspoken question in our hearts. What am I getting out of this? And that question, though it may seem harmless, quietly shapes our expectations, our reactions, and even our emotions. We begin to observe every detail through this lens. How much attention am I receiving? How much effort is my spouse putting in? How often am I being appreciated? How often are my needs being met? And slowly, without realizing it, marriage turns into a constant evaluation, a silent scoreboard where we are always calculating, always comparing, always feeling either fulfilled or deprived based on what we think we deserve. And the problem is not that you have needs. The problem is not that you want love, respect, and care. These are natural. These are human. But when your entire focus becomes centered around what you are receiving, you begin to lose sight of something far greater. You begin to lose sight of Allah's presence in your marriage, because marriage at its core is not just a relationship between two people. It is a relationship that includes Allah in every moment, in your words, in your silence, in your intentions, in your sacrifices. And when Allah is no longer at the center, the relationship becomes fragile because it is now dependent only on human consistency, and human beings by nature are not consistent. There will be days when your spouse will fall short, days when they will not meet your expectations, days when they will disappoint you, days when they may not even realize how their actions have affected you. And if your mindset is, what am I getting? Those days will feel heavy. Those days will feel unfair. Those days will make you question everything. But when your mindset shifts to, how can I please Allah within this relationship? Something powerful begins to change, because now your actions are no longer reactions. They are intentions. They are choices made with awareness, choices made with purpose, choices made with sincerity. You begin to speak kindly, not only because your spouse deserves it, but because Allah loves kindness. You begin to show patience, not only because the situation requires it, but because you know Allah is watching your patience. You begin to forgive not only because the other person apologized, but because you want Allah to forgive you. And this shift, my dear sisters and brothers, is what brings stability into a marriage, because when your actions are tied to Allah, they are no longer shaken by every small change in your spouse's behavior. Your consistency comes from your connection with Him, not from the perfection of the other person. This does not mean that you become emotionless. It does not mean that you ignore your pain. It does not mean that you never communicate your needs. But it means that your foundation is strong. It means that your heart is not constantly in a state of dependency on human response. Because, let us be honest, when two people are both focused on what they are getting, the relationship becomes a place of tension. Both are waiting, both are expecting, both are feeling that they are giving more than they are receiving. And this creates distance, even if love is still present. But when even one person begins to shift their mindset towards pleasing Allah, the entire atmosphere begins to soften, because giving replaces demanding, understanding replaces judging, patience replaces constant reaction, and over time, this has an impact not only on your own heart, but on the heart of your spouse as well. You begin to realize that every moment in your marriage is an opportunity to earn reward, an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to purify your intentions. Even the smallest actions, the ones that no one notices, the ones that are not appreciated, the ones that feel invisible, they are all seen by Allah. And this awareness changes the way you experience your efforts. You no longer feel like your kindness is wasted when it is not acknowledged. You no longer feel like your patience is unnoticed, because you know that nothing escapes Allah's knowledge. Nothing goes unrewarded. Nothing is ever lost, and slowly your heart finds a different kind of peace, a peace that is not dependent on perfect circumstances, but on a deeper understanding of purpose, a peace that comes from knowing that your role in this marriage is not just to be loved, but to worship Allah through the way you love. You begin to ask yourself different questions. Instead of, why am I not getting enough? You begin to ask, am I giving in a way that pleases Allah? Instead of, why is my spouse like this? You begin to ask, how can I respond in a way that earns reward? And these questions guide your behavior in a completely different direction. And this is where sincerity becomes the foundation, because when your goal is Allah, your actions are no longer conditional. You do not only show kindness when you receive kindness. You do not only show respect. When you are respected, you strive to uphold your character regardless, because your standard is higher than the situation. Of course, this is not easy. It requires constant effort, constant awareness, constant reminders, because the human heart naturally leans towards immediate satisfaction. It wants recognition, it wants appreciation, it wants fairness, and there will be moments when you feel tired, moments when you feel like you are giving too much, moments when you feel like it is not being returned. And in those moments, you remind yourself, who am I doing this for? What is my ultimate goal? Is it the reaction of a human being, or is it the pleasure of Allah? And this reminder realigns your heart. It strengthens your intention. It brings you back to your purpose, because the reality is that when you seek everything from your spouse, you will always feel a gap. But when you seek from Allah and you give for His sake, that gap begins to close, not because your spouse becomes perfect, but because your heart becomes content. And this contentment does not mean that your marriage becomes free of challenges. It means that you are able to navigate those challenges with a sense of purpose, with a sense of calm, with a sense of trust in Allah's wisdom. You begin to see that even the difficulties have meaning, that even the moments of discomfort are shaping you, refining you, bringing out qualities within you that you may not have developed otherwise, patience that you did not know you had, strength that you did not realize was within you, compassion that deepens through struggle. And through all of this, your relationship with Allah grows, because you are constantly turning to Him in your moments of frustration, in your moments of confusion, in your moments of exhaustion. You seek His help, you seek His guidance, you seek His reward. And this is the essence of shifting the mindset. It is not about ignoring your needs. It is not about suppressing your emotions. It is about elevating your intention, about expanding your perspective, about understanding that marriage is not just about what you gain in this world, but what you build for the next. And when this understanding settles in your heart, your entire experience of marriage transforms. It becomes lighter. Even in its heaviness, it becomes meaningful. Even in its challenges, it becomes a journey, not just of companionship, but of spiritual growth, of self-discovery, of drawing closer to Allah through every interaction, every choice, every moment you choose to act with sincerity over ego, with patience over reaction, with intention over impulse.